Yes. Good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to welcome you all to Gastronomy and Beyond, the event. Thank you, everybody, for being with us today, and thank you, everybody who is online joining us from different parts of the world. My name is Adela, and I will be with you the whole event, and I will have the honor to guide and to co-host this event. Today we're celebrating the second edition of Gastronomy and Beyond, the event. Gastronomy and Beyond was created with a clear purpose to bring together people who are rethinking gastronomy and expanding its role beyond fine dining. Because gastronomy is something that connects all the people all over the world. It connects across cultures, territories, and definitely it connects across generations. It's a shared language, the language of food, a way to build community and a powerful tool to understand who we are and how we relate to the world. Food brings us together and creates moments of sharing and connections. And that is what Gastronomy and Beyond that connects individuals working across culture, sustainability, science, communities, and beyond, exploring more than the plate. What is beyond that plate? Throughout this event, we will explore key themes such as social impact, communities, and the future of food systems, and how astronomy can help shape a more sustainable and inclusive society. Before we begin, I would like to thank all the people and organizations that support this initiative and make this event possible. Of course, MIT, City Science, Basque Culinary Center, RCC, Harvard, and MIT, Spain. So let's start. Are you ready? Yeah. Let's start. We're very excited to have Chef Fatmata Binta online and also Chef Rasmus Munk. Are we ready to welcome Chef Fatmata Binta? Chef Fatmata, where you are. Thank you so much, my dear friend. Thank you. Let me tell you something about, I mean, the moment I see Fatmata, it always makes me smile because she does so many amazing things. Let me say something about Chef Fatmata. Chef and cultural curator dedicated to preserving and elevating African food traditions, founder of Dine on a Mat, and recipient of the Basque Culinary World Prize in 2022, regional food wheel ambassador for Africa, United Nations. She has set up the Fulani Kitchen Foundation supporting women farmers and their cultivation of fonio, a type of millet as an additional source of income and a crop that is resilient to climate change. So Fatmata, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Adela. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you very, very much indeed. I do have so many questions, but let's start with the first one. How have you seen gastronomy directly transforming livelihoods, especially for women, through your work? Because food is much more than food.
For me, it's been truly inspiring and impactful. And I always like to share my most candid experiences being in the field, because I work closely with women in the north of Ghana that grows fonio. So I'll tell you this short story. When I started working on reviving fonio in the north of Ghana, I used to go with my team to try to register farmers to join, to mobilize, because most of these communities, they know about fonio, or some of them know that it was something that the generation before them was growing. But because it's tedious to process, they abandoned it, and some of them have forgotten about it. So when I started going into these communities and talking to them, most of the women were hesitant to join because they say it's too much of a process, physical manpower, labor that they can't do. So because I won the Basque Prize, having that income to support them and also working closely with VAO, and I invested in machines, I saw the transformation change overnight. We went to register about 100 women. We ended up with 200 women because women were just coming out, because they knew now that, okay, there is a solution. There is a machine. We don't have to do things the traditional ways. And also they felt like they are part of something bigger. So I'm saying all this because first of all, food is very powerful because it's one thing that connects us all. Most of these women, I don't speak the same language with them. But also when you empower, a woman, when you invest in women, the transformation is remarkable.
If you could scale one aspect of your work globally, Fatmata, what would it be?
Empowering women, I would say, and fonio, because I feel like fonio is part of a big conversation now, and it's a solution. I see fonio as a solution for food insecurity in Africa. It's part of the solution. It's not the only solution. But also, when I look at Africa and our ingredients and our food system, we have so many amazing ingredients in Africa that are not only nutritious, but they are also drought resistant. They contribute to biodiversity in a positive way. They are low impact ingredients. And I feel like it's something that the world can tap into. And it's something also that we can scale, because if we can scale that, we can transform, economic resilience for not just rural communities, but also, as a nation being self-sustainable. And also it is something that can really transform beyond what the conversation is right now. Things like fonio, which is an ancient grain, it's drought resistant, but it's also gluten-free. And the world is talking a lot about healthier options when it comes to eating now. And we have that, that is very easy to grow, and it's something that the world could benefit from. Sorry.
Is there something that surprised you in this initiative? What is the biggest impact that has surprised you in a way that you didn't expect?
I didn't expect that investing in the right tools would inspire and motivate women to add value to what they've been doing already. Because sometimes also we feel like to make a change, we have to do something very big. And for me, it's surprising that a very little thing can go a long way. And that means investing in the women, in the people, in the indigenous food systems, and the people who actually holds the answers to what we are looking for. Because I feel like the world desperately is looking for answers right now when it comes to climate change, food insecurity, women empowerment, youth, all the conversations we're having. And it's surprising to me that if we look closely, the solutions are very simple. It's just about taking the step and being intentional, and also collaborating with the faces and the hands and the people behind it.
Sometimes it's as easy as to stop and think, right?
Yes, I think it's always good to reflect and go back to basics. I feel like sometimes we think about solution as something very, very big, but it's really about going back to basic, taking a step back so we can take two more steps forward.
Fatmata, what is your biggest hope for the next generation of women in your community? If you want to look at the future.
I hope that women can be voices for themselves. They can have their own voice. They can be custodians. They can empower communities. They can have more access. I feel like access is a problem. I hope that women can have more access, and I hope that women will fight less for what they deserve. I feel like we fight 10 times harder always for us to get the same recognition or the same support that a man would easily get. So I hope that would change for the next generation. They don't have to work too hard as the generation before us and the current generation.
You understand now why I admire so much her work. Fatmata, just before we move to the next speaker, what question would you like to ask Rasmus Munk, our next chef? What is the question for him?
Thank you. I have one here. Let me look.
Yeah, there you go.
I actually like to ask men these questions about women. So Rasmus.
Oh, wow, this is interesting. Excuse me. You want to ask men in the audience something?
Yes, so I'm asking, looking ahead, what is your biggest hope for the next generation of women in your community and the space that you work? Because you're doing such amazing work, and I also admire your work a lot, and I hope I've told you that. So I would want to hear from you.
Okay. So you want to hear from Rasmus, from the rest? Let's listen to Rasmus.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Thank you very much indeed. I think she deserves a big round of applause. Thank you so much, Fatmata. Please stay tuned. So perhaps Rasmus can give you an answer through all his talk. Thank you very much indeed, Fatmata. And now it's time to continue and to give the word to Rasmus Munk. First, we will watch a video, but let me introduce Rasmus, chef and co-founder of Alchemist, 2 Michelin star restaurant, named the best chef in the world 2025 and 2024, and 2025 by the Best Chef Awards, redefining gastronomy as a platform of storytelling, science, social, and ethical inquiry. It seems that he likes provoking. But what about watching a video? Ready when you are. Video in.
Have you been to his restaurant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know him well?
A couple of times in
Yeah.
the old restaurant, in the small restaurant, and in the new also.
This is a new one.
It's fantastic.
Thank you very much. Hi, how are you?
Good morning. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
We are very, very happy to have you with us. I tell you something. Fatmata launched a question to you that you may answer later on. But the question is, how will you empower women? How do you think we should empower women in the future? But the first question I would like to ask you, well, the first thing I would like to say is congratulations on your work. And the second question I would like to ask is, how did you begin to develop your language, Rasmus? This conversation you use today in gastronomy, where food becomes a storytelling science, and everything we can see thanks to that video, thanks to everything you do. How did everything begin?
Yeah, how did everything begin? I think I was a little bit tired of the way that fine dining was was happening. Like, I mean, I was doing fine dining in a restaurant before Alchemist, where it was kind of an echo of people that was better than myself or more original. I kind of zoomed into like what was the trends, and then we practiced that. And one day I have a charity organization called Wish Christmas, directly translated, which making a Christmas Eve for family needs, and it just made it filled me up with a lot more happiness than actually cooking in the restaurant. This we're giving something to these family needs with less work, and it didn't matter if the ingredient was biodynamic or organic. It was just about feeding these people. And when I came back to the restaurant and worked 90 100 hours a week for making dishes that was trendy and try to follow up with creativity, it just felt wrong in a way, and that was what made me stop up and think, and I quit my job and really wanted to do something where I could make a bigger impact in the world. And that ended up become Alchemist, because I could also see that chefs around the world had a great voice. They got if the restaurant was performing good, you had a platform where you could communicate and actually do a change in the world. So Alchemist became this vision about taking high-end fine dining gastronomy, and could you use that as a medium and platform of conveying and communicating through the food itself. So for me, it's a medium of artistic expression, and get an outlet for my thoughts and my creativity, and then have an extra layer on top of what the craft itself, and hopefully create some reactions for our guests, but also inspire through our artistic medium with more than just the food. So it's for me it's go very much beyond the food. It's not neglecting the food. It's very important. Like, it still needs to be the best ingredients, still need to be cooked skillfully, and to taste good as well. But I think there's more depth to it than just the craftsmanship there.
Definitely, that's what many chefs are doing right now, is looking beyond, right? As you are doing, as I will present our next speaker in a few minutes, our Mario Sandoval, who is in the audience with us. Very important people looking ahead and thinking of a better world. Rasmus, what is one question you think the gastronomic world is not asking enough right now?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's probably many, but I'm very, especially in Denmark, in the Nordic region. I think we have been privileged to experience some amazing restaurant over the last 20 years, and restaurants that's changed the landscape of gastronomy, both worldwide but also in our region very much. But still, there was a report coming out from one of the biggest dairy companies the other day, Arla, in Denmark, which stated that 7 out of 10 young people that's like graduating from the primary school, so around 14, 15 years old, can't cook an egg, and it's 7 out of 10 kids. So I feel there's quite a big paradox in this culinary world, where we're doing exceptional things, and then we still have a very hard time of getting it down in society and out to the masses, and creating a better food culture for them. So I think that's our biggest gap, and I hope that chefs in the future as well will ask themselves, how can they use their medium of reaching beyond the plate, and also in a broader context in society.
I don't know if you were listening before to Fatmata. I know you are in Australia right now. How do you think we can continue empowering women through food?
I mean, it's we have quite a lot of women on our team here in Denmark. So we trying our best to see how we can get more women into our project and into our restaurant. It's also the sad, unfortunately, reality, at least in our end, that we just recently posted a chef job in the restaurant, and we had over 700 applications. But there was 3% female applications in that. So how can we also make I don't know if it's in the curating process, how can we change that so we also attract more women's into our kitchens, and when we have applications like that, we actually still we look at skill sets, of course, and what is the background and what do we need specific for this job, but then we also prioritizing getting the women's into to the trials first, to be honest, so we can try to see if we can increase our numbers of the have a more equal gender in our kitchen.
Right, and she was also talking about food and communities. Rasmus, 2076, how do you envision gastronomy in 50 years' time? If you could say a sentence, a word, or something that comes to your mind, 2076, gastronomy.
So in 50 years from now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's gonna be interesting. I mean, I don't hope it will be like it is going in the direction it's going now. It seems like nearly in every country around the world, even with the one that have UNESCO heritage and so on, we are getting less and less time in kitchens at home, especially. We are using less money on ingredients, and we need to go as fast as possible. And then we eat the wrong foods. We don't have knowledge enough about it. I mean, maybe have knowledge enough about it, but we have maybe too much, and there's not any political action regarding what's actually the best for us. There's an all other kind of field, so from smoking to drinking alcohol. But when we talk about ultra processed food example, there's not any regulatives. So I think right now there's a lot of things going in the wrong direction, and then we fixing it all up with something that's I don't know, it's a good invention for the people that really need it, but I mean to have 10 kilos too much body weight, and maybe just eat the proper thing, and then instead of inject yourself. So I'm scared about that things is going in a completely wrong direction, where it's convenient, and we are kind of building a hamster wheel that's hard to stop, and a production and big money in productions, where we will end up having vanished our food culture to something that's we find out too late is like meaningless and very poor in many ways. So I hope in 50 years that we have understood how much that it means to eat real foods, how much it means to gather around a meal, the social aspects and that, and hopefully use more time in the kitchen and understand that value have a deeper impact on yourself, your body, and your health, and I hope that will be part of the future, that we value even more good cooked meal with real ingredients. Hopefully we eat a little bit more plant-based. We eat within some planetary boundaries. And I think that is a combination of changing the diets, but I think that will not come easily by itself. Of course, it will come eventually, but I don't think it will come fast enough. So I think there needs some political political action into that field as well, even that it's very sensitive subject to go into, because food is something we all have relatively close, and nobody should decide what we're eating. At least we believe, but I think we need to do something there. And then I hope that we also will see into a world where we have changed the paradox that we live in a world where we throw out 1/3 of all our food. that's produced for human consumption, and still we have over a half billion people that is facing hunger or malnutrition in part of the world as well.
Thank you very, very much. And before we move on, what question would you like to ask our next speaker, Chef Eneko Atxa? He's such a good friend that I nearly forget his name. Can you believe me? Chef Eneko Atxa, and I know you're very good friends as well. What question would you like to ask him?
I think now, actually today is my at least Australian time is my birthday today, so I'm really, and every time it was not to get there, it was not to be big applause. But every time it's my birthday, I reflect a little bit upon the year and also my own presence and what can I do beside eating a little bit more healthy diet probably to make what is about next year, what can I do, and what is where we going in which direction, and I mean Eneko has been part of this game for quite a long time. He's a brilliant chef and yeah, he's just amazing and an amazing person, which is also very important. And I wonder why, how he keep being creative. Like how does he stay on top of that, having creativity, innovation close to him, and how do he keep being creative and fuel himself up with that.
Thank you very much indeed. Happy birthday. Thank you very much indeed, Rasmus. Thank you. Thank you, Rasmus Munk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And now, definitely, when I was thinking about Eneko Atxa, and I was thinking how much I admire him, and that's why I think suddenly, when I think about his creativity, when I think about your creativity, my dear friend, I wonder the same thing as Rasmus does. How can you? Let me tell you something about Eneko. Chef and founder of Azurmendi, 3 Michelin star, a global reference for sustainability, known for integrating culinary excellence with environmental responsibility and circular systems. Fatmata, Rasmus, and definitely Eneko share something absolutely important. They are very, 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 very good professionals, but especially they are very good people. Eneko Atxa. Thank you so much.
Hi to everyone.
Thank you so much.
My answer about Rasmus, I don't know exactly. I don't know what is the correct answer, but every morning when I wake up, I feel, and translate it to all my team, one very clear thing. It's today in the morning, we don't have 3 Michelin stars, we don't have awards, we are with nothing. We have to build from this morning, from the end of the day, everything again. And this is the unique way to continue building a passionate future. This is my answer. I think that we have to continue every day thinking that all this coming and all this to achieve. Okay, for today, when I visited MIT time ago, I feel something very, very special. The same sensation that this morning, I come here for MIT for today, and also because I come with other friends from my town to run marathon next Monday. And today, the one of my special gift for them was, okay, you will feel today something very special. And this morning, when Parfait give us an incredible tour and explain everything about MIT, I feel in their faces that the emotion, that feeling that you are walking in the future with this tool, with this technique, with this idea, is fantastic. I feel the same some years ago. And I understand here that what's important can be the tools, for example. No? And after my visit to MIT, I created a lot of things with the passion, with different things. One platform that we try with Eneko Atxa, one physics doctor, we created together one platform that the democratic way and sustainable way and delicious way, a lot of 1,000 people can eat at home very fast, healthy, and blah, blah, blah. And it's something fantastic for me. And I play with this platform every day, and it's very good. And we are working in progress with this. And then I have my time like, wow, AI is incredible, the tools are incredible. And in a lot of different meetings with Luis, with Kent, in one call, we have one very interesting conversations. And Ken told me, Eneko, it's very nice that you are working, your passion for the new tools and technology, but let me say you one thing, important thing. The people that is working every day about these things, it's finding something beyond the tools, beyond the AI, something authentic, something real, something new. And I say, okay, this is the road. And then I start to thought that, okay, how is my industry in this point? And in this graphic is something very curious because we can observe the impact of the AI in a lot of jobs. And curiously, in food and service, it's almost nothing. And I say, okay, we are finding all the time the secret of our challenge, and honestly, it's here with us, close to Asumendi all the time. We have restaurants also in Tokyo, and one of the most incredible philosophies that I love it from the Japanese people is like wabi-sabi. They love all the things that are imperfect for the time, for the past, or for the other things, because they understand that behind that this imperfection are one history. And this is exactly my big inspiration for now. Why we welcome people from around the world to Asumendi, but maybe because we are absolutely imperfect. Because we have one in the past creative process, and now for me is the artisanal process. Because I think that it's something absolutely anarchic, absolutely with not one order, but absolutely passionate and absolutely close to my roots, to my micro world. And for this, my inspiration is from the senses, memory, environment, pantry, the travels, ideas, the sketch, the pencil. The pencil, I always say that is my favorite tool in the kitchen. In the kitchen, my favorite tool always is the pencil. And techniques, like tools, like AI and others, but only like a tools. And the most special and secret ingredient always is the story behind the story. Today, before we are speaking about that different things, and okay, and then what is the difference in the one espresso on one special coffee that you can find in the corner of the Boston street? But maybe it's the story when the people is explaining that this coffee is from this country, we buy like this, behind that this, you can find one community of women that are working with this, I toasted like this, I make this coffee like, this is special, no it's replicated. It's one in this moment with this story. And this is like we are trying to do in Asumendi all the time. And this is the part of the beauty for me, but beauty in imperfections. Every day is different. Every day a different person is cooking something with one idea, but a different way, with different ingredients, with the ingredients that it's coming from the different farmers also. It's important for us. I always say that we never start to cook in the kitchen. Before that we switch on the kitchen, the farmers are starting to cook for the guests that are coming to the restaurant. And every day is different because the nature is giving me a different things every day. For this, today, I start saying that my admiration for MIT, for the technology, for the future is incredible. But also in the kitchen, I think that the point of the value or the point of the different is human-made. This is my idea for the next years. And our menu now, the name in the Basque language is for this excuse, is handmade. This is the value. For me, the new technologies are like a tool, but the hands are part of the heart and the mind of the chefs. That's all.
Well, so thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed, Eneko. Thank you for inspiring us all. I think in this time of artificial intelligence, to talk about heart, soul, and people, it's absolutely essential. Eneko, one question.
I have one question.
One question for our next speaker. Do you want me to tell you who she is? Our next guest is Jocelyn. Yeah, stand up. Big round of applause, please, for her. Jocelyn Brown. She's let me say everything correct. She's the Director of Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, for North America, working at the intersection of food systems, policy, sustainability, and global food security. Eneko, what question would you like to ask Jocelyn?
Jocelyn, for me, you know, the chef today is like a rock star. I don't know why, but it's like a rock star in TV programs, overall. And the really thing is that the real heroes are behind the chefs, are in the farmers, in working with ingredients, because they are working for the sustainability, for our health, for our culture, again. Then, how do you think that we have to do something to put in value the farmers and to invite to new generations to be farmers in the future? This is my question.
Very good question.
Thank you
very
very
good
much.
question.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
And Jocelyn, ready when you are.
Thank you so much. I have a presentation for you all. It's not quite as dramatic or elegant, and I'm going to take you all away from the wonders of your senses and smells of gastronomy and down to the hardcore policy and issues that face our food system. So first of all, I have a couple of questions that I want to start with. I'd like you to, no judgment here, just raise your hands, and then I'll come back to them at the end. So first of all, who today had either some almonds, something made with almonds, or avocados? I did. Okay, quite a few. Who today drank some coffee, some green tea, or ate some chocolate? Okay, good. All right, thank you. Who today didn't eat everything that they had and threw something away? No judgment, I did it too. Okay. Who today threw something in the garbage and not into the recycling bin? I'm proud of you all. I don't believe you, but I'm proud of you all. Okay. So what I'm here to talk about is the issue around food, something that we eat every day, something that we think about it at least 3 times a day, if not more, right? And the nexus between food and something that consumes so much of our time in terms of like, when is my next meal going to come? When am I going to go to the grocery store? Am I going to be able to afford to go to that restaurant? And actually understanding the food systems that we are and why the future of food is just not decided in boardrooms, but decided in kitchens. Okay? From my perspective, We're trying to fix the food systems from the top down through government policies, through even policies from the Food and Agriculture Organization, which is the oldest UN organization that there is. And we really need to fix the policies from bottom up. I would actually change this a little bit and say, we have to fix our policies not from the downstream. By the time you get the food, the food that's delivered to all these famous chefs' plates, but right at the source of the farmer who is trying to create that food. And right now in the United States, about 11,000 people create most of our food every day. 11,000 people creating the food for 330 million people. Okay, we produce enough food, yet there's about 800 million people who don't have enough food. We have about 3 billion people who cannot afford healthy diets. And where cities are vulnerable, and where we have about 3 billion people who don't have access to safe water. So this is not a production problem. We have enough food. This is a systems failure. We also know that people don't eat nutrients. Now, I try to eat. The latest one is, put things of color on your plate, right? Eat this quinoa and eat more protein and those kinds of things. But when we're eating, when we're really good at sitting down at a restaurant, at a fine dining restaurant, or we're just sitting down at our corner restaurant, our comfort food, we're eating culture, we're eating our habits, we're eating our identity. We're not eating some far off thing of what, in our case, in the United States, the Farm Bill is telling us to eat or telling us to produce, right? It's very, very local. And I happen to have benefit from the fact that my headquarters is in Rome. Yay, like the center of gastronomy. I go to Rome for some long, long meetings. All I want to do, come home, is eat a good American sweet green salad, right? It's like, that's my identity. That's how I want to do it, right? And when you have international people come to the United States, the first thing they talk about is they miss their food. So food is not this thing up here. It's this thing that's very personal and very close to who we are as people, okay? But when we're talking about food and these big policy ideas, we're talking about production, yields, logistics. How am I going to get this soybean from here to there? Who's going to grow this corn? Is that cattle rancher really doing it sustainably or not? Should I even be eating meat? Right? And they ignore things around what do people want to eat? And can people's diets change? And can people be persuaded to try new things? Which I'll come back to avocados and almonds and coffee and cocoa when we get there. So we have to reframe it. Chefs are not just cooks. Researchers are not just analysts. Policymakers are not just regulators. We all have to work together to fix this very, very broken system where we have so much food and we have almost 1 billion people who do not have enough food to eat. Okay? So we have to bring it all together, culinary research and policy. A microcosm of this that I think has actually been a huge success in the United States is in the school meals program. Now you could say, okay, you can argue the school meals program promoted ketchup as a vegetable. Okay, that's sort of that was wrong, but that's sort of not central to the point. The point is there was a decision made in the US government after the Depression that school children needed to eat, and they needed to eat nutritious food, and it should be for all school children, and it should reflect the culture of the state, which is why school meals are really governed by states right now. So it was really a social policy intervention that understood that it's not just agriculture sitting on those children's plate, it's food that's meant to nourish them, to get them through the school day, and to enhance and give them a social benefit, especially for people with low income. So the system loop again. We have to start with research. Research should feed our policy, which should help us with our plates, which should help us with our behavior, and the behavior should tell us what we need to be researching, and the cycle starts all over again. There has to be this sort of closed loop here where there is not a disconnect between the fine gastronomy and what the 11,000 farmers that are basically feeding us are growing. And it's not those farmers' faults, right? They're doing, I swear, those farmers are doing their level best. It's just that there's so much disconnect between what's going on in their lives and what's going on in the fine dining in a city like Boston or in Sevilla or in Tokyo. So what's at stake? A lot. And if I think of the future of food, unfortunately, I think of more problems than I do of solutions. I feel like we are at such a point of close disaster that, who is actually going to farm in 20 years? As you can tell from my hair, I am not a young person. Who among you wants to go out there and farm? It's a tough job with very, very low margins, the riskiest job in the world, the hardest job in the world. Who wants to do that? How do we make our food inclusive? How do we make sure that 800 million people have food, that 2 billion people who don't have nutritious food can afford nutritious food? How do we integrate the things that we love about food so much into the solution? The foods that bring us so much comfort. We go home and I want my comfort food. How can we bring that into the solution? So the future of the food is not decided in boardrooms, whether it be the boardroom of the ag committees and the Senate committees in Washington, or it's the boardroom of Kraft or PepsiCo. That's not where it's decided. It's decided every day at the tables where you eat. And it is created every single day. And I believe that we can fix it. It's just that those two places have to meet. So I'll go to my final point. Those of you who said, you ate an almond or some avocado, right? So I'll be 60 in 3 weeks. Yay me, I'm going to make it to 60. I did not eat an avocado until I was about 25. And when I was a lot of your age, almonds came as one nut out of a tiny little, you'd get specialty like nut mixes at Christmas time, right? Now today, there's sort of like you can buy them anywhere and everywhere. My point there is behavior can change. We can go from I've never eaten an avocado before in my life, where it's like I can't go a day without an avocado, right? Which is pretty much me. I pretty much can't go a day without an avocado. I certainly can't go a day without an almond. My second one on coffee, tea, and cocoa is none of those things is grown in the United States commercially. Not one of those crops is grown in the United States, and yet they are so fundamental. Can you imagine your day? Can you imagine Boston without any coffee? I mean, the world would stop. I mean, and I'm joking a little bit, but not really. Like, coffee is so fundamental to our society, and apparently coffee alone is 1% of our GDP. In terms of how much we consume it and trade it and send it places and drink it and buy it. Okay, so that's my second one. My third one is we waste way too much food. In the United States and other developing countries, it's about developed countries, it's about 30% of the food that we waste. In other countries, unfortunately, it's food loss. They lose on yields, but it's the second largest cause of greenhouse gas emissions in the agriculture sector after livestock production. So you have the power yourselves to compost, to give your food away, to decide how much you're going to eat. That is a very, very individualized decision that you personally can make. And the fourth thing I can say is that the food system and the agriculture and the climate system are inextricably linked. 80% of the pollution in oceans comes from the land, right? Food is filled with microplastics. It has to be the agriculture system has to be a part of the discussion of the climate discussion, of the energy discussion, of the transportation discussion, of the healthcare discussion. It has to be integrated. It's part of those things, and not just, oh yeah, food is medicine, that's cute. No, it has to be a equal partner at the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was absolutely amazing. Now we start the round table. We're ready for this? There are many, many, many important questions. I would like to ask a very, very small question. Rasmus said 7 out of 10 people don't know how to cook a cake. Can you raise your hands? Who can cook a cake? Wow, okay. Please, Jocelyn, join me for the round table. Please, Eneko, join me for the round table. And let me introduce as well Kent Larson. Let me introduce Kent Larson. It's such an honor to talk about you, Kent. Director of the City Science Group at the MIT Media Lab, leading research on future cities. So we will look at the future of cities as well, urban systems. And as you mentioned, Jocelyn, we have to work together and design-driven solutions for sustainability and human well-being. Thank you very much, please.
Thank you.
My dear friend, Luis Alonso Pastor, this is me. I would like you to join me and to congratulate Eneko Atxa because today, right now, he started and he opened a restaurant in Madrid.
Yes.
Thank you. Luis Alonso, Principal Research Scientist at the MIT Media Labs, City Science Group, and PI of the Andorra Living Lab project. Luis Alonso integrates research on energy, urban mobility, city simulation, innovation districts, and smart housing. Thank you all for joining us in this roundtable. I don't know so far if you have any questions for any of the people here, Kent or Luis. I don't know if all the things that were shared opened a new conversation or opened a conversation. Definitely, we scale, Jocelyn, you mentioned we scale the same broken system over and over again. And Eneko is talking about humanity, about heart. Kent, what question would you like to ask Jocelyn? Yeah, I know. Because I definitely think Jocelyn opened many, many boxes here.
Uh-oh.
Well, I mean, there's so much that we could get into. I would love to get your thoughts on what's the solution to this problem that you laid out? In terms of how far can we push more local distributed production versus these global supply chains. You mentioned you eat an avocado every day. Well, they're probably flown in or trucked in from Mexico.
Right.
We're not going to grow avocados here locally or almonds. But during the pandemic, I had 4 hydroponic systems in my basement I was playing with, growing all my tomatoes and lettuce, and but that doesn't scale. That was a really labor-intensive hobby that I had when everybody was locked down. It was great. I could pick my lettuce, I could eat my tomatoes every day in the middle of the winter. But how far can we push the local production versus the distributed production?
I mean, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. I think what we do need to do is we need to incentivize more people getting into agriculture. And Eneko, I did never answer your question, so I'll try to bring it back in, right? How do you get more people into farming? It's a tough, risky job. And I think that as governments, one thing I say a lot is food security is national security. Governments have a role and responsibility to feed their citizens, and part of that is making sure that they figure out what different options there are to feed those citizens. And I think we need more incentives, whether it's at the state level or at the national level, to get people engaged in what you're doing. But I also think it's important for people to understand that not everyone is going to want to do hydroponics in their basements. I personally do not want to.
And I don't do it anymore.
I'm not
It was too
interested in
much.
that. And I think that So I think we have to reduce barriers for people coming into agriculture. We've got land cost barriers, we have access barriers, we have transportation, energy, capital cost barriers. We have to address those. And then we also have to push local, we have to be real about what it means to eat local. And that in the wintertime, that means we're not eating strawberries that look nice but don't taste well, and we have to accept that.
Or avocado.
Nor avocado.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a tough one.
Absolutely, and that is a tough one. And I know, Eneko, you always talk about that, what it means to eat local, because sometimes, there is all this dialogue on eating local, and we feel really good when we think it's local. But is it really sustainable?
I think that is sustainable, but not like only thinking in CO. Also thinking in the culture, in the community, in the network with the local people. We have to change overall in the fine dining area. We have to change the mentality and think that maybe, depending on how you explain and how you cook, maybe it's more important one local bean that you cook the extraordinary way that one incredible caviar from, I don't know. I think that this is the value. If you explain that this bean is from this farmer, that every morning is coming, blah, 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 I think that the value is growing up all the time. One super fast example, we have one green peas in the Basque Country, is TR peas, is the name that the people know. 10, 15 years ago, 1 kilo was less than €1. But what's super special because the recollection is very early, before the sunny, and it's super sweety, it's like explosion. And then we change the name and we say, it's the green caviar. And we start to cook, all the chef start to cook with this ingredient, with the green peas tears. And now the price for the agricultures is more expensive than real caviar, because we put in value the community, the chef, the farmers overall, and also the most important thing, the clients that are coming to the restaurant that understand the story behind the ingredient, the paradigm of this ingredient. And I think that we have to push all together in this direction. And this way we can achieve one ecosystem with farmers that are sustainable, but not only sustainable with the planet, yes, okay, also sustainable with the economy for the farmers or for the first sector, I think.
We try to drive this discussion into 3 topics, although I think it's difficult to put a barrier to all these topics. The first one is social impact. And regarding social impact, Kent, how do you see food systems contributing to human well-being in future cities?
Well, I think, contribute to obviously public health. That's sort of the basics. But I've become more interested in the cultural impact, the impact on community. And I've been traveling around to cities around the world, particularly in Europe, actually. It's so amazing to, like in Madrid, where I was a few months ago, all these little shops that used to be retail outlets, shoe stores or clothing stores. Many of them are, they weren't viable during the pandemic, and they're reopening as restaurants and bars and places where people come together and to, socialize and develop stronger social ties. And that has, it's not just about food, but it's about being with people and sharing food. People are drinking less. I think they're beginning to eat more healthily, and during the pandemic when everybody was isolated, and now with people working increasingly online, I think it's these social experiences around food that are so critical to the future of community.
Absolutely, Luis. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for aligning urban innovation with food sustainability?
Well, that's a good
Yeah.
question. I don't know if I'm gonna because I don't have a solution. That's
Yeah, I
the thing.
know.
So, no, but I think I want to reflect a little. I mean, think a little bit about because in energy, for instance, we think that when we have infinite energy, we are gonna be able to solve all the problems of humankind. Kind of, you can have infinite money, but you cannot solve all the with money, not. But with energy, sometimes we were thinking like maybe we can fix a lot of things. But then listening to you, Jocelyn, I was like, well, in the world we have almost infinite food. Not infinite, but we could feed the entire planet, and we are not feeding the entire planet. So that is actually, I was like thinking about that. So I think when we talk about technology and cities and smart cities and that connection with the community, I think it's all about the impact with humans, and that's very clear to me. It's like how can we use the tools that we have today so we can build awareness with the humans and say, hey, together we can solve the problem. But we are super divided and we are super polarized. So we are not going to fix this problem. I mean, we are going to keep building broken systems, etc. So it's funny. I mean, and that's why I love food, because culturally, most of our cultures is about coming together. People sometimes that don't know each other, going to the around the table, we eat, we share ideas, and sometimes we fix. In Spain, we have this sentence, no, about we are fixing the world, no, like after this lunch, no. Our tables in the group pretend to do the same thing with digital twins, etc. I think that's the path, but again, I don't have a solution. But I think it's more about working with the humans and giving the humans the tool so they can talk with each other, break the polarization, try to have that resonate with others and understand that the other person is another human like you and wants to have quality of life. And I think that's how we can kind of connect both worlds. I don't know if I am answering, but
Oh, you are answering. Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to add something, but definitely this is about people. But when there are very, very good initiatives, Jocelyn, how can governments help, institutions help?
Well, a lot of different ways. And when you say government, also, I think immediately we go to how national or federal governments, right? But we all know that local governments, regional government, provincial, state governments, or the equivalents have agency and have power to do that as well. So I think that, let's make sure when we say government that we're talking about government at all levels, even local town governments. Sure. And I would say, to that end, to bring together the notion that the food that you're eating, that the food that's coming in Eneko's new restaurant got grown somewhere and it was produced somewhere, but agriculture is not just producing the food, right? It is producing the food. It's thinking about the seed that's going to go in that land. It's knowing what soil that is, knowing how much water is needed for that land, knowing whether or not to put fertilizer or pesticides on it, whether depending on how you want to produce, getting that food from the land to the road to the train station, the train to the supermarket or to the lab where it's going to get turned into something else and then packaged and sold somewhere else. So there's this huge multi-step process between the idea of a seed and what happens on someone's plate. And I think we have forgotten that we don't talk about that whole middle part that is, it's not even fundamental. It's how we get food from the seed to the plate. It's beyond fundamental.
Absolutely beyond, and definitely raising awareness is so important. Let's talk about it, right? Because I think it's so important. Kent, then we are moving topic. We are going to talk about communities, although still it's social impact, of course. But talking about communities, Kent, what role can shared food spaces play in strengthening social cohesion in urban environments? So what do you think these shared food spaces can do for us?
Well, I think, like my previous answer, I think it can help bring people together. I worked for many years at Union Square in Manhattan, and every week there was a food market there. I mean, this is in the center, one of the biggest cities in the world, a high density place, and there was this beautiful food market with all the local farmers that would come together, and then people would come down from all the office buildings, and people would meet other people that they otherwise wouldn't have. And, you know, I would meet people that love tomatoes. You know, how would I meet somebody in another building that loves tomatoes? So I think that's there are many ways, but I think food is what brings people together. I know that in the Basque region, the food is so central. But I think the experience of older people and younger people with food is very different. You would certainly know more about that. But I would love to see more proactive programs that could bring, you know, different generations together to share food and make more, you know, social, meaningful contacts between people. I think that's so. It's not just design. It's not spaces, but it's programs that are designed to bring people together through food.
Do you think architects know that?
No. Well, do they know that? No, I mean, sure. Many of them know that, but I don't think architects are empowered to really deal with things at that level. I think a lot of this is more community organization. A lot of it is public policy and incentives. I think designers are removed a couple of steps from the actions that could have that kind of impact.
Okay. So I think we have to talk to architects, Luis.
Well, I don't know if that's a good idea, but good luck.
Well, good luck. Luis, what role do innovation districts or living labs play in connecting cities to food systems?
Well, that's again a good question. I think, as Ken say, I think architects, we are not aware of you know, this connection. I think most of the people, we are not. I mean, when Rasmus Munk was talking about cooking a cake, or I mean, if I ask how many people in the room knows how to fry an egg, I like. Do you, yeah,
Let's ask.
Yeah, see, so
raise your hands.
Okay.
In fact, I thought he said cook an egg, not a cake.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't know. You heard cake.
I understood cake. What did you understand?
It's okay.
Did he say
Egg, it's
egg?
an egg.
Oh, I think it was
cake.
cake.
Okay.
Cake is more, I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, but to be honest, I mean, I am the youngest of three brothers. My mother, she used to show love through food. So for her, like, if you finish the plate, was like, oh, they are happy. Even with that, sometimes she was like, oh, you need more. So anyway, so for me, getting into cooking was kind of me trying to gain that skill. I was like really fighting to learn how to cook. I was like, no, I want to get there. And my mother was, no, you don't have to be in the kitchen. These days, it's funny because we have AI that is helping us to write code. In this building, in the 80s, people were saying, no, the kids of the future, they're going to, as a language, I mean, they are going to learn English, Spanish, whatever, and also coding. Now we have that, okay? But now we are losing very basic skills like cooking, for instance. So I think that's something that we need to bring awareness, as we were saying. And as soon as everybody in the society has awareness, then the innovation district, they will start incorporating that. I mean, in the group, we have the Gastronomy and Beyond, so we understand that it's important.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a common thing. I mean, like most of the urban planners or people thinking about the smart cities, when they look into food, it's more about, oh, okay, it's going to be an amenity that I'm going to put it there. In the group, we try to understand human behavior and what kind of amenities do you need for this kind of population that are going to live here. But anyway, I think we are very far from that. And it's true that maybe innovation districts are going to be much better if we include, you know, the food factor. But for that, I think we need to have awareness in the society.
So we have some.
Well, I actually think there are more creative exchanges that happen over food, even at MIT, than happen, you know, in a classroom or an office space. You know, go to the Muddy and share a beer with people, and that's where the ideas are exchanged. So, you know, more than other places.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have the lunch meeting every week. We have the food camp.
Yeah.
But,
Social connection happens, and it happens. It's not magic.
Exactly.
It's social connection happens. Eneko, how do you let's talk about examples. How do you build a genuine connection between local producers, territory, the people who experience your cuisine, 3 Michelin star? How do you build that connection?
It's supernatural. No,
Easy for you to say.
that's absolutely natural because I born in Basque Country.
Yeah.
I visited the market and visited the local shops with local ingredients, with local farmers. like something normal, then no, it's something exceptional for me. For me, also, I have to say that in the Basque cuisine, it's very important to say that when a lot of years ago, when the resources no aren't too much, the mothers and the grandmas had the capacity that with very humble ingredients created the most incredible recipes
Yeah.
for big families also, with not too much resources.
Yeah.
And I think that when you have a necessities, you have that the something magical, special, to create the best things. And I think that today the chef are thinking and I saying that the Basque Country is very special, that the Basque Country chefs are.
Be careful, Eneko. There are a lot of Basque people in the room. So yes, I'm just, yeah.
Then, simple, it's natural.
It is natural.
Production.
You know, I just want to mention that I had an incredible experience with Eneko and Adela. We went to the market in Guernica.
And Guernica, yes.
Guernica. And we walked around, and it was like you mentioned rock star. It was like you were a rock star. It's like you were Taylor Swift. Everybody wanted to. And you sample this, and you say, "Oh, you should try this."
That is because we are at the same team.
Yeah,
The farmers and myself.
it was fantastic
and
to
are
see
the
that.
same team.
Yeah.
It's for this. It's for this.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. But what is fantastic is that you don't forget your roots. And sometimes we do forget your roots. You are a rock star. Jocelyn, what makes a food system truly inclusive? Yeah, I know. There's a side.
A truly inclusive system would ensure that everyone had safe, healthy, nutritious food. Everybody, no matter who that person was, right? That it's very basic. I thought you were going to ask me, give me an example, and I was going to say I can't give you an example. I mean, there are examples, little bits and pieces here and there. I mean, there's some places that really, I think, value inclusive systems and have and embrace technology when it comes to food, which we haven't talked about here. We've talked a lot about local food, but the food of the future is going to have to address technology. And I think people here may even want to embrace more technology than there is. But I would say, certain places like Costa Rica, they have a certain cultural relationship to the environment and the food, and they see more of that relationship, I think, in a daily basis than your average American does, for example.
Yeah.
So I don't have a good answer to your question, but of course, it's a really pretty simple answer that it has to be safe and nutritious and affordable food for everybody. And we just don't have that anywhere.
Luis wants a Star Trek food replicator. Right?
Oh yeah. No, that was a question that we at lunch meeting. Yeah, but it's related to the infinite food. I mean, imagine that you could have the Star Trek replicator, and you could put a food, and then you replicate food. And it was a project here 10 years ago.
And are you okay with that?
Excuse me?
I mean, is that something that you would you eat that replicated food?
I don't know. That's a good. I mean, that was a question for Eneko. So
I wouldn't want to be eating it myself. I would prefer the foods, which is why I find it so interesting that people who are anti-animal production want to grow protein in a lab.
Okay.
I would much rather fix the production system with the animal because it's an animal that's real and part of our system than use the energy to put it in a lab. Now, I have to say I'm for both of them because that's my job to say both of them. But personally, I would rather fix that system than I would spend the energy and the research and the time and the money figuring out how to make a protein in a lab. That's my preference.
But will the lab-grown meat actually be affordable and nutritious? I mean, because you live in that world.
That is very, very, very unclear. Yeah. It is very unclear that that the processing time that it takes, that the energy that we're using, that the mental energy that we're using to do that versus addressing some of our other issues around. I mean, we didn't get to talk about local foods, but there are some amazing foods, Basque country, but also in Africa, where if we could produce them at scale, we really could revolutionize. There's a baobab tree in southern Africa that has, highest concentration of vitamin C and can, actually has some protein elements to it. You could sprinkle it on some starch, and children might not have vitamin C deficiencies, right? Like revolutionary in terms of their nutritious quality. And we don't talk about that. We're talking about growing protein, which we already create in a lab. And those are the kinds of things I just can't kind of get my head wrapped around.
Yeah. Is it back to basics in a way? I don't
Could
know.
be.
Could be a back
Could
to
be.
basics. We were talking about the future. Let's look at the future, right? So if we look at the future, Eneko, if you had to design the restaurant of the future, what would it be? I mean, the most important principle of that restaurant.
I think that not for the future, in the present, have to be sustainable, have to be delicious,
Yes.
honest with the team, with everything, and health. The word in the gastronomy industry for the last years are like a tendency.
Yeah.
I hate, but like a tendency, sustainability.
Yeah.
And I say that our future to be health or not to be.
No, that's excellent.
That's a very good one. Luis, any comments on that?
No, well, no, no, that's something. I mean, I spent a couple of years when I was 1 year actually in 1995 here with my what I call my American family, 1995, and at that time I was very aware of food can be, like there are some products that they can bring cancer or whatever. No, they can, and I was having that conversation in 1995 with my American family, and they were like, "What are you talking about? Do you think that food can kill us?" And I was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you don't eat the proper thing. So, and I think that's something that is still there. I mean, like a lot of people don't realize that health and food is so related that that I really love that what Eneko just said, but that's the only thing that yeah.
Kent, what is the biggest shift needed to make cities more resilient? You look into the cities. You look into the future. How can we make them more resilient? I don't know if there is an answer for that.
Well, I mean, I think there's a high-level answer, and that is to move away from these more fragile, centralized systems to more distributed systems. Whether you're, and I think that became aware during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about how you produce power, or how you purify and distribute water, or deal with sanitation, and I think. And I don't have an answer for it. That's why I asked Jocelyn the question about how far could we push distributed food production. It would be fantastic if a large percentage of the food that we eat is produced, not in the city. I think this urban agriculture idea is a little silly in most of the cases. But on the perimeters, like they do in Amsterdam, where we have huge greenhouses around the perimeter. In Amsterdam, in a cold, fairly dark climate, and they're highly productive, and I think have been proven to be cost effective. You probably know more about that than I do.
And city rooftops can actually be used to grow, could be used as greenhouses on top, right? So I think there are some urban things you can do. Whether or not it's going to feed the whole city, very questionable, but it can certainly be additive. I think the question, though, is are we willing to, there are going to be some very hard trade-offs, and or the people who are currently in food production are going to need something else, right? And right now we haven't found that something else. There are no alternatives, right, to the rural areas other than creating food. I guess maybe now data centers are getting out there, or maybe some manufacturing, but what is that something else that they can turn to so that they don't lose their incredibly risky, difficult livelihood that it is that's already there. I mean, farming is 100% the riskiest, the hardest industry to get into.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it other than fisheries, which is, I would argue, is part of agriculture.
In most grocery stores around here, the lettuce is grown locally,
Oh, okay.
hydroponically. So, I think particularly the highly perishable food that doesn't travel where there's a lot of waste, I think a lot of that can be produced locally. But I don't know how far that can be pushed. It's an open question.
I think it's time to open the mic to anybody in the audience or anybody listening to us.
One thing I want to say about the future is I am optimistic. I have to be optimistic, guys. I mean, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Everything was that. No. I like to talk about love. I think like you were asking in 2050, no? Like that's good because a lot of the people in this room, they are going to be the next generation that they are going to be leading this world and they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And with us, I think so the future needs to be collaborative. I think needs to be focused on the humans because I mean, what is very clear to me is that the world has the assets to keep us alive here in this planet. We are producing food enough for humans. We have enough water. We have enough, but we are just keeping fighting with each other. So as soon as we fix that and we start having love, and people loving each other, maybe, I mean, this sounds a little bit like weird, but then maybe we can start like breaking all the all the polarization and start collaborating. If that happens, I think that in 20 years, 50 years, maybe, let's say 50 years, I think we can have a beautiful future where humankind can collaborate. I just want to put it there in a positive end, at least for the future. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does make a lot of sense. Definitely, if there is any question, please raise your hand. We've got a question here. Thank you, Maitane. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much, both of five, for being here and organizing this. I'm also from the Basque Country, from Bilbao. I'm a restaurant owner and a pasta maker. And I wanted to ask all of four of you, there's a great actor also in all this world we're talking about, is that it's also feeding the next generations. There are the social networks, social media, and who more than billion people every day are watching their phones and creating tendency. So for each of one of you, I would like to know what's your approach of this world, because that's also a game changer. How we create tendencies, how El Guisante Lágrima has become something really, really appreciated. It's also of the chefs, but it's also in the every day, So we are talking about influencers and we're talking about food. How is this going to also be part of our society if we want to change everything? So.
I think, just let me say something. I think it's very interesting because you were talking about love. We were talking about we have to work together. And definitely there are many opportunities because we do have voice and thousands of people are listening to us. And raising awareness is really key. But what about that question?
No, don't look at me. No, because I think somebody else take it.
Well, I think Eneko should take it, building on what Rasmus said about how he realized that being a chef gave him a voice.
That's it. Yeah.
So how do you use your voice?
I think that the real challenge for the future with the new generations is that we have to share with them other point of view. We have to share our knowledge, but on the same time, we have to find a new language to translate this knowledge in my industry. Because before, we are coming from the old school and old-fashioned industry, and the way to translate it or to share our knowledge was terrible, absolutely terrible. And I think that we have to change our mind and we have to open our arms and understand also that the world is changing, that no is like 20 years ago. We have to be open minds for this. Is the most important thing, because the good ideas are every day in all the kitchens, but no are people enough that work with the passion, and the responsibility no is the new generations, is from how we are showing that was this industry. And then for me the challenge is change the mentality.
Yeah, Jocelyn, I'd like to ask you, in this positive perspective, what opportunities do you see? There is one question that you made, who is going to farm in 20 years? I mean, the context is there. What opportunities do you see?
Well, let me just answer a little bit of about the app question, because then maybe I can fold that into something else. So first of all, the cell phone has revolutionized the poor farmer in developing countries, and I don't want to underestimate how important the cell phone has been for price information, for disease information, for market information. So that has been an incredibly powerful tool that has lifted a lot of smallholder farmers out of poverty. On the other hand, on the flip side, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Something I say is, just because Gwyneth Paltrow eats food doesn't mean she knows how food is grown or any of the nutritious quality in it, right? And that's true of any social influencer. And so I would say be very, very, be very wary. I might flip your question on the head a little in terms of opportunities, Adela, out there. Is the next generation has to demand that our food policy is integrated and holistic. The Farm Bill right now is on its second extension. Farm Bill is negotiated every 5 years. It's basically the food security bill for the United States. It's on its second extension. There's no, sitting where I am, I sit literally across the street from the White House every day. There is no solution in sight, as far as I can tell. There's no solution in sight. Whatever solution is going to be either the status quo or worse than the status quo. And I would venture to guess that many people in this room don't know what's in the Farm Bill, which is the food security, the agriculture bill of the United States, which is the most productive agriculture entity in the world, right? So one could argue that this is the most important piece of legislation, and most of Americans don't know what's out there, and it's just languishing. So what I want for the younger generation, or the next generation, I want you to demand better. I want you to demand there is not one representative in the state of Massachusetts who sits on the agriculture committee. I want you to change that. I want you to go to Seth Moulton or Richard Neal in my district. I vote out in Western Massachusetts. Why aren't you on the agriculture committee? Why doesn't the agriculture committee cover specialty crops? Why doesn't the agriculture committee have incentives for people my age? Why haven't you passed the Farm Bill? Why doesn't the Farm Bill include water security? Why doesn't the Farm Bill include nutritious information? Why does the Farm Bill only have 6 titles? It could have 12, it could have 20. I want you to demand better of the policymakers, and don't let them get away with the status quo.
Yeah.
Let's look a little bit further into the future. Again, if there is any other question, just please raise your hand, or anybody online raise your hand. Do we have another question? Yes, just go ahead. Hello, how are you?
Thank you. I just want to quickly ask, I know we've talked a lot about gastronomy as it is on the systems level in the city, on the farm, and in, Chef Eneko's 3 Michelin star restaurant. But for a lot of people, food isn't, at the fancy restaurant or at the farm. It's what am I going to cook for dinner tomorrow, right? It's what do I buy at the grocery store? So I'm wondering, like, at the level of the average person's kitchen table, what does gastronomy look like?
Who answers that? Who would like to answer? I don't know.
No, I mean, I am not the right person to answer this, but something that we were talking actually in the lunch it was like, and we were thinking about the future. I mean, yeah, this looks like very, natural, but we have been talking about this a lot. And then what I realized is that there are not only one future. So Eneko was saying, listen, like you have like fine dining, that's the experience, but then also like a lot of people, they need to have food every day. So at the end of the day, you are gonna need like a lot of different kind of, let's say, futures and systems that they overlap. So from my point of view, I think that's one of the direction. Like if I look into the future, for sure, and if I look to myself actually today, there are days that I arrive home and I have the energy to go fancy and cook something nice. And other days when I arrive home, I just make my salad and that's it. It's like, okay, by default, no, my by default thing. So I think in the future, I mean, we should think about, first of all, something that is accessible for everyone and breaking a little bit the challenges that we have of food scarcity, but then also how is going to be our relationship with that food, and that's why I was talking about coding and cooking. I mean, if we lose the cooking skills, probably at the end of the day, we are going to be living in these houses that sometimes Kent talk about that. I don't know if he likes a lot, but that he says now there are a lot of developers that they build the house without a kitchen, sorry, and then they have the communal kitchen downstairs. And for me, that's terrible because if I don't have the kitchen, even in my house, I will be like, well, I'm gonna order from. I will never use a big kitchen like in the communal area. So I think having the access not only to the food but also to the tools and is important. Again, I am not answering because I don't know how to answer. But I don't know if I give time for you guys to think about the answer.
Well, I remember when we were. Some of you might know our city home project. Little small apartment where things moved and beds dropped down from the ceiling. I was showing this in Hong Kong to some young people, and we had a tiny little kitchen. I mean, literally this big. And I remember some of the young people said, "Why are you wasting all that space with the kitchen?" We have dozens of little inexpensive restaurants downstairs. We don't have enough room to entertain. We meet our friends down there. We can eat dinner for a few dollars. Why? Nobody cooks. We might fix tea. So they're real cultural differences that we have to be aware of.
The knowledge can change this paradigm, because if you have knowledge about how food you can cook in one very small area, you can make incredible pasta, for example. You don't need more. A small casserole and one fire. But always is.
Absolutely. I was thinking also, Kent, you said there are, of course, many cultural differences. And Eneko, you're in the Basque Country, but you have a restaurant in Japan and you have restaurants in many other places. How do you, when you start a restaurant, do you get into the culture? How do you adapt your philosophy to Japan?
I don't have the control about the restaurants that we are opening in the other countries. Today is the example. I am here between. We are opening in Madrid, but anyway, normally when we open in Japan, for example, we visited Japan. We try to understand culture with the local people. And we don't try to translate our food to Japan, only our soul. We pick up the people in Japan, welcome in Azurmendi, in Bilbao, and we show how we are working and how we have a relationship with our farmers, how is our traditional flavors. And after, we make one co-working time with the Japanese chefs, and together we created one Eneko's restaurant in Japan with a Basque accent, but the local ingredients, local soul, and respecting that Japanese culture. The unique thing that they have different is the accent. When we open it in Sevilla, we open it sometimes. Because before, in my speech, I say that the gastronomy is like a universal language, but this language have a lot of different dialects also. And one dialect is fine dining, and other dialect is street food, and other dialect is something very informal. And we are dancing with all the styles and with all the accents in each project.
We are dancing with all the accents in each project. That sounds
Can
really
I ask
really
a
good.
follow-up
Of course.
to Eneko? You, speaking of Japan, you talked about imperfections,
Yes.
and you showed the Japanese vase.
Yes.
And when you were showing that, I was thinking about how here at the Media Lab there used to be an expression. I don't think people use it anymore. It's that at the Media Lab we don't make things that work, we make things that break. Which sounds very weird to people until you realize that if you're really pushing the envelope, inevitably you'll get to a place where you break it, and that's what you learn from. Is that what you mean with imperfections in food, or what exactly? Can you give us an example of what you mean with respect to imperfection in food?
Because for me, the perfection is something that I am trying to catch all the time, but I know that is like a chimera, like impossible. And then it's beautiful thing that you will achieve the perfection, but on the same time you are creating something very beautiful. Is that the imperfection that you created finding the perfection?
Oh,
Okay.
Perfection, finding the perfection.
there could
Yeah, there is another question around, so please. Yeah.
So I'm very curious about, food is interdisciplinary, intersectional, and obviously there's a diverse group of people on the stage. So how does the FAO, how does MIT, how do you and Nico, how do chefs and all these folks work together? What's the actionability, behind some of these conversations? Because from the ground to the 30,000 feet, right, there has to be the dot connection. So I'm very curious about what's popping up, what's curious, and what's next.
No lo he entendido bien, perdón.
¿Cuáles son las conexiones, no, entre todos
Yeah,
nosotros con
yeah.
diferentes interdisciplinares? No, I don't know if any. Yeah, you want to answer?
I think that my favorite thing in the world is learn about other people. And when you have a different meetings with people that is coming from the other disciplines, it's like something magical for me, because I am chef like for accident. I don't know why. Really, no, it's something vocational that is coming from my family. No, it's something like accident. And then when I have the opportunity that listen other people and learn is the biggest gift that I can receive. And then stay here with the people that is super generous, super open. It's incredible for me.
Yeah, I think for me, the magic happens at the connections.
Yeah.
The intersection of people with different interests or disciplines, and when you can get a Michelin star chef with someone that thinks about food systems in the UN, or a chef in Africa working with with women, and have an honest, open conversation about where things align and common interests, I think that can be magical. Much more interesting than talking with people that are more like you.
Yeah.
I think Mark was making a more pragmatical question. It was
Oh.
like, what is the connection between us? I will say Adela is the connection.
Yeah.
She's like the mother.
Adela's the connection.
But it's a very good question, because now we are thinking, where can we take gastronomy and beyond in the next step? And we are trying to find that way of connecting all the dots, collaborate together, and that's a challenge. So everybody in the room is welcome to help us to make that connections. But yeah.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, I think the magic happens when people with different views, different perspective, different backgrounds sit down and think together. I think something very, very special happen. And if you put those people thinking about food and our future, because it is our present and our future, then again we have to work together. I think your sentence definitely is so interesting. I think we do have a couple of questions more. We do have time for a couple of questions, so just please go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much for this talk. This is awesome. I'm a master's student here, but outside of the lab, I'm cooking, I'm gardening. I love all this stuff. And I bring up that context to say that I don't think I'm like the typical consumer. And I've appreciated the questions that are sort of asking from the world of gastronomy. Your average consumer probably doesn't know what gastronomy means and probably sees themselves as being very distant from the world you live in. And so the first part of the question is how exactly are you engaging with everyday people in a way that you feel like will actually create the kind of change you're talking about? And the second part of the question is related to, I love this idea of like through behavioral change, we can really challenge the biggest part of the systems. But I feel like there's a lot of skepticism in food systems communities saying that corporations and governments have so much power. How can we possibly as consumers challenge all that? And I love your positive view of that and would just love to hear more about that as well.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, I don't know if anybody, Jocelyn, would you like to answer that?
Sure. So the first one is how are we connected to every person, right? So and I will say actually, I think FAO itself oftentimes boxes itself into FAO equals smallholder farmer, really poor person in rural developing country. And the challenge that I have with that narrative is that yes, we have 130 offices around the world. We have 194 members. Most of those members are people who are facing food insecurity and challenges, but we also have members like the United States and Canada and the EU and Japan and Korea, where those are not really the same issues, and yet we all eat food. And so could we change the narrative so that we're not only talking about smallholder farmers who are eking out living and talking about everyday farmers, farmers in the United States, farmers that I talk to who say, I don't know who's going to farm my land in 10 years. I don't know. I don't have anybody in the next generation who's willing to step up. And so I think I would like to see developed countries be more humble about some of the looming crises. I'm also glad that you felt that I was optimistic about I don't feel very optimistic right now, but I want to thread back a little bit to what you were saying before. I think one of the FAO's powers is that while we are mostly aligned with ministries of agriculture, we also bring in, by the virtue of our work, through nutrition, through food safety, through land and water systems, irrigation, through economics, through fisheries, forestry, all these things, that we do see sort of the whole of government view. We have a sort of a bird's eye view. Now, whether or not the government wants to hear from us is another story. Oftentimes I'm poo-pooed and like, why are you here, agriculture? Why are you here talking to us about national security? What have you got to do with us? But I think that agriculture is something that cross-cut. I mean, you give me any sentence, you give me any policy problem, and I can connect it to agriculture. We were just talking fashion. Where does fashion come from? Cotton, wool, hemp, silk. Agriculture, right? You talk about the fracking industry. Where does the lubricant for the fracking industry come? Agriculture, right? So, but I think that's where agriculture is always fighting for a seat at the table, and yet, I don't know about you, but I would say most people think about what they're going to eat, where they're going to eat it, when they're going to eat it, how they're going to get that food every single day. So the disconnect for me is just, miraculous in a way. And my job is to try to keep that message going. I'm not sure that answered your question.
Thank you
but
very much.
we went off on some tangent, so sorry about that.
Yeah, we have time for just a couple of questions. So there you go, and then
All right, I'll be quick. So given that we're at MIT, are there any technologies, breakthroughs, or research topics that you're excited about that could unlock gastronomy for maybe more people? Cool.
Don't look at me. Why do you always look at me when you have very difficult questions?
He's a very
Yeah, I am a kamikaze, you know, I am. The food, the Star Trek, no, what was the replicator, the food replicator?
Maybe I'll answer it, connecting it to the previous question.
Yeah.
I'm interested in behavior change.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important area of research, and you can change behavior over a long time. We've seen that. Very few people, drink and drive or don't wear a seatbelt or smoke, and it's interesting. We did an analysis a couple of years ago looking at the carbon footprint per person. And we're just way over the global limit. And the global limit is about 2.5 tons per person per year. If we have an 80% chance of limiting global warming to 2 degrees, the American diet alone is more than that. So it's pretty staggering. So, and to get, to really reduce that requires behavior change, but it's incredibly complicated because people want to eat what they grew up eating and what they enjoy and what comforts them, and it's very culturally specific. But I do things are changing. I hear people in the restaurant industry saying people aren't ordering the big entrees now. They're ordering small appetizers and salads, and they're certainly drinking less alcohol. We're not making enough money because people don't buy our cocktails. But that's, in effect, a behavior change.
I have an answer for you on the technology side. So the U.S. agricultural public research budget has not changed in real dollars since 1970. We are at the same level of technological change. How about we just put more money into agricultural research? Like, let's start there. Let's start valuing agricultural research. And whether that's a value in how do we get baobab, how do we grow baobab in the United States, or how do we get it from Southern Africa, to how do we create more feedstuffs for animals so that they produce less methane? How about we research some more pesticides so that we can produce we can grow crops with even less pesticides or maybe no pesticides? How about we just invest in agricultural research as a society and value that? Because right now it's clearly not valued by just the sheer graph of we're at the same level as we were in 1970. And yet we eat food every single day. And this is the part that just blows me away. We are willing to spend money at fine dining and things like that, but we are not willing to take our money and put it where the research is, of the technology is, to make sure that that fine dining is sustainable and accessible and affordable, or and doesn't create more carbon footprints, and on and on, and is nutritious and all those things. How about we just put our money where our mouth is? Literally.
Yeah, and also building this community of people and of chefs that definitely, they do fine dining, but they look at the future in a different way. I mean, this is the social impact, that this is what Fatmata is doing with women, this is what Rasmus Munk is doing, this is what Eneko is doing. I think that building this, raising this awareness is really, really, really important. So we do have another question. There you go. Okay.
Hey there.
There we go. Yeah.
I've got a very similar question to what was just asked. So how do we in the Northeast create a more sustainable food system outside of federal policy? Because Jocelyn, as you probably know, Massachusetts is at the very tail end of the food journey, from farmers' food coming from California all the way up here. And so what comes up here tends to be much less nutritious than what you can get over here. And given that we have four seasons, only 2 seasons that are really suitable for growing, it's like, what can we grow? Root vegetables maybe, but given that it is expensive, and given that the federal policy may not be aligned right now with what we need now, like what can we do here, either within state government or outside of policy, to make a more sustainable system?
Yeah, we do have a minute for that.
Well, I would say, look, Massachusetts led the way on healthcare policy, right? You could lead the way on agriculture policy as well. Why not? Give it a shot. Demand it of the policymakers. And I would also say that I actually am not a total local food person. I do believe in, not every place is the same. Places, you grow different things in different places. We need coffee. It's not grown here, right? So, but I think that, the Massachusetts lawmakers could revolutionize how you did it in healthcare, and that is a pretty difficult area as well, and it could be done here as well. So, I can go into more how you do, but I don't think I have the time to tell you how to do it.
We just have a very last minute to ask all of you, which idea, and to ask you as well, which idea do you think will stay with you after today's session, after this conversation, after listening to the chefs, after listening to the speakers? Which idea do you think will stay with you? Because I learned the term yesterday, the popcorn brain. I didn't know about this. The popcorn, it's so cool, the popcorn brain. You know, we go so fast. We don't think about ideas. It's just, you know, so let's get away from the popcorn brain and let's stick to an idea that you think will stay with you. What will stay with you, Luis?
Well, I think it's always the same idea. I mean, besides love, that I
Yeah.
think. No, but it's it's about collaboration. I think if we don't break our silos and we break the polarization, we are not going to solve the problem. And so my faith is in humans. I really believe in humans as a way of change, and collaboration is the path. Even mutualism, you can be a little bit selfish, but win-win, you know. We have to build that kind of things. We are very far from that. And I understand the new generations when we are talking about, oh, you have to complain. They are like, well, is that useful? But I think it's more about if all together we look into the right direction, collaborate together, and complain together, maybe we can change things.
Okay. Jocelyn, what about you?
Well, I live in Washington, D.C., so I don't like humans maybe as much as you do, Luis. Maybe they disappoint me a little bit more than they do you. But I would say what I've learned today is I've been really moved by how chefs like Eneko and Rasmus understand, you know, the grave problems that are facing us, that you're not just worried about your restaurants, but you have a greater sensitivity and understanding of the social ills that food insecurity causes.
Thank you so much. Eneko, what about you?
I keep optimist because people from the other disciplines, brilliant people like we have here, keep attention in the food system, and I think that is something very, very important for the future and for the present also.
Kent?
Well, I think I'll be thinking about public policy and the fact that, you know, we can't expect anything from the national government. I know the case where a large agricultural grant was canceled by DOGE because they used the phrase crop diversity. But I love Jocelyn's idea that local governments could pick up the slack. I think mayors and communities and governors, they should just say, no, we've got to pick up the ball and run with it. And there's a big opportunity there. And you know, don't wait for top-down.
And it breaks my heart because I worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture for over 20 years. It breaks my heart, but I just don't see a way forward right now, other than through the state and local level.
Let's just assume it's never going to happen, and then take local action.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for joining us looking at gastronomy, not from the fine dining perspective, but from the social impact it can cause, because we can make the change. And definitely, we have to work together. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.